Ready? Today we're going to be talking about infection and our body's response to that infection and how our body defends itself from pathogens and things that come to make us sick. Just to start off, like germs make people sick. It doesn't come from anywhere else. Like that's what it's germs. They are microorganisms, and the germ theory proposed that the microorganisms are these microscopic organisms, these little tiny organisms that were super, super small we couldn't see, cause disease. Louis Pasteur was the guy who came up with this. You might kind of be familiar with his last name because he also came up with the idea of pasteurization, which is like how we prepare and process milk before we drink it, like before we sell it and like everybody can drink it and all that kind of stuff. That's why like milk lasts in your fridge for like a month or something like that. Because normally it would only last a couple of days tops before it was like bad. So Pasteur came up with that. And he also came up with this germ theory. His whole thing came like led to a lot of like new advances in understanding disease. And then there was a guy, Robert Koch, who in 1883 proved that pathogens cause disease. That led to antiseptic techniques like soap and like really like keeping things clean and preventing infection, like in surgery rooms and in hospitals and all that kind of stuff. People started actually like cleaning up after themselves. And then in 1928, Sir Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, which is the world's first antibiotic. And then in 1955, Jonas Salk made the polio vaccine. So that was it wasn't the first, but it was like one of those first like vaccines for viruses. And they actually were able to eliminate polio in the US in 1994, but because there's a whole bunch of people who are like, vaccines give my kids autism and like I don't know what they put in it and I want to, not vaccinate my kids. The disease came back in 2005. Okay. So we'll talk more about vaccines when we get to that unit. Um, let's talk about pathogens and human illness, though. Okay. So pathogens can enter the body in different ways. There's direct contact and there's indirect contact. Direct contact is basically you have to touch an infected individual. So, you kiss somebody, you shake their hands, you have sexual intercourse, like any of those kinds of things where you're directly interacting with somebody and you hug them or something like that and they pass the illness to you. Indirect contact means that you won't actually need like an infected individual to get sick. So this is like the coronavirus, for example, can pass by direct and indirect contact, where it's like you can get it by touching an infected surface. Like if somebody coughs on their hand and then they touch like the doorknob, and then you touch that doorknob, you can like pass that disease to you, and it will like it could get you sick. Breathing infected air is another thing. So someone could like sneeze and like 2 minutes later you walk through that area and like there's still virus in the air and you like inhale it. Okay. The immune system consists of a lot of organs, cells, and molecules that fight infections. Skin. So your skin is the first barrier to infection. Okay. It prevents most of your like body from getting like it prevents you from getting infected because it like covers most of your body, right? Except for like your mouth, your nose, your eyes, your ears, your genitals, like basically open places where stuff can go in and out. Like that's like a something that's like an area where you could get something infected. Like for example, coronavirus can pass through the eyes. It's why like doctors have to wear like the mask and they have to wear like goggles and stuff because your eyes are like a place where you could like cold viruses can enter and coronavirus can enter and all that kind of stuff. So skin is a physical barrier. It protects you all over the place. That's why you can get infected when you get a cut because you've broken that barrier. The lymphatic system is the system that helps transport and grow immune response cells and hormones. So this includes things like your spleen, your tonsils, your lymph nodes, all that kind of stuff. Mucous membrane. So because like I said, like your nose, your mouth, your ears, your eyes, like your genitals, all of those areas are like potential, entry points for infection and pathogens. You have mucous membranes that prevent that. Like your nose has all those nose hairs, and like when you get something in your nose, like your nose starts running and you have to sneeze. Like that's actually an immune response to like push out the pathogen. Your body is trying to get rid of it before it can infect you. Your mouth has saliva, and so that saliva can help break down and destroy some pathogens, not all. Most of the ones that do get you sick, obviously, like saliva doesn't do shit. Um, Your ears have earwax, and and it also has hair in there, which protects your ears. Your eyes, you have teardrops, like you have your tears, your tear ducts. They produce like water that's supposed to push out pathogens, get them out of your eyes. Your genital areas have a lot of hair, and also there's like a lot of mucus production and stuff like that. So that helps keep your genitals clear of pathogens. Obviously, it doesn't work for every pathogen, but it helped eliminate like some of them. Like you never get sick for stuff that like can't get past that, like those things. But unfortunately, a lot of viruses do because they've mutated to uh, handle us. So anyway, the circulatory system transports immune cells around your body, and then we have cells and proteins that fight infections, and we're going to talk about those. So white blood cells attack infections inside the body. That's their main job. There are a lot of different kinds. I have a chart that lists the different kinds. Basically, phagocytes. So phago means to eat, and cyte means cell. So it's like literally cells that eat. Okay, that's what phagocyte means. These are cells that engulf and destroy pathogens. Their only job is to eat them and destroy them. T cells are cells that help destroy infected cells. So once the cell's already been infected, T cells help mount that immune response to prevent you from like dying from this disease. And then B cells produce antibodies. So they kind of work in preventing you from getting sick or trying to help you not get sick in the future. So these are the first four are different kinds of white blood cells. The neutrophils, which are work in immune defenses, eosinophils defend against parasites, so specifically against just parasites. A basophil actually works in inflammatory response. So when we're going to talk about what inflammation is, but in that kind of situation, basophils are activated. Monocytes work in immune surveillance, so it like kind of keeps an eye out for like problems. And then B lymphocytes work in antibody production, which I just said, and T lymphocytes work in the response. And so all of these things we're gonna talk about mainly the bottom two, but the top four are just for your own education right now. So there are three types of proteins that fight off invading pathogens. Okay, we talked about cells, now we're talking about proteins. Complement proteins weaken pathogen membranes. So these actually help prevent the pathogens from like succeeding. They like, try to kill the pathogens directly. Antibodies actually kill pathogens. Complement proteins weaken them, antibodies kill them. And interferons prevent viruses from infecting healthy cells. So interferons are there to try to prevent you from getting sick in the first place. Complement proteins and antibodies just sort of kind of have to act after the fact, after you're already sick. And so this is just a picture. An antibody is like the Y-looking thing, and an antigen is a receptor on the pathogen. Like it's like a node on the pathogen. So immunity basically means you won't get sick. Okay, if you have immunity, you cannot get sick from a pathogen. So in cases of immunity, the pathogen is destroyed before you get sick. There are two different kinds of immunity. There's active immunity, which occurs after immune response. So this is what happens like when you get a vaccine, because a vaccine is meant to give you like a weakened version of the virus or a dead version of the virus to teach your body how to fight that virus. Okay. So if you get a vaccine, your body's already had that immune response and already knows how to fight it. Or if you've had the disease before, so like if you were a little kid and you got chickenpox, if you encounter the chickenpox again as an older adult and you've encountered that virus, your body already knows how to defend it because it's already been sick once. It already knows how to fight it. So that's active immunity. Passive immunity, number one is your genetics. So certain people just have genes that help prevent them from getting sick from certain diseases. Like people in Africa, many people in Africa have a gene that helps prevent them get malaria, and it often causes sickle cell anemia if you have two copies of the gene. That's a whole other like class, but just to give you an idea, like it can happen through genetics. The other thing is mother's milk. So if you have a baby and you like do breastfeeding and stuff like that, the mom actually has like passive already, like the mom's already developed immunity for a lot of diseases. She's been sick, she's had colds, she's had the flu, like she's had chickenpox, she's had all those kinds of things before. And so if a mom it already has immunity to certain things and she breastfeeds her kid, that kid is going to get what we call passive immunity. So the mom is basically through breast milk passing antibodies to the child. And so the baby, before they can before they even have an immune system, before they really know how to fight off a lot of these bad things, they get like this temporary immunity from their mom. Like their mom passes antibodies to the kids. So let's say a flu virus is passing around like an area, and this baby's still breastfeeding. Well, if mom's already had this flu before and she's already fought the flu, she's going to be passing those antibodies to the baby so the baby doesn't catch the flu and then get sick and die. So it's a really cool way that our bodies have adapted to help prevent our kids from getting sick. Now, of course, if your kid is getting like formula fed, then that makes it really difficult for the kid to be protected. So it is one downside of not breastfeeding your kid is the fact that you don't get the immune response. But it's okay. We're modern society. We're cool. We're chilling. All right. So your body responds to pathogens in many ways. Non-specific responses and specific responses. So a non-specific response is when it is basically a response that your body reacts the same way. It's like it's the same response for every pathogen. This usually captures like most of like the little things like it'll deal with allergies, it'll deal with the basic like pathogens, the really easy ones to defeat. And it'll just do this. So it's like when you get a cut, you have a non-specific response, right? A specific response is when your body is targeting a pathogen with a very specific, like unique, like I know exactly how to kill this one thing. It's like your body is targeting chickenpox specifically versus targeting all viruses, which is the non-specific. So, some examples of non-specific responses: inflammation. Okay, that's like a non-specific response generally leads to inflammation. Inflammation is when your skin gets hot, painful, swollen, or puffy and red. Okay, so if you've ever gotten a cut or gotten hurt in some way, or even just like had an allergic reaction or something like that, you'll get inflammation. And it'll be localized. It usually is localized to like one specific area, like around the cut, or if you're allergic to peanuts and you eat them, then like your face and your digestive system starts, like your throat starts to swell because those areas are where you get the immune response. Um, Inflammation happens because white blood cells move towards that infected and damaged tissue, and you get a lot of like blood and platelets and things like going and just locating on this one specific spot, which swells up your tissues and like makes it painful and puffy and red and all that kind of stuff. And hormones are released, and it's a whole thing. But basically, this is the idea: is you get inflammation. Another non-specific response to infection is fever. So, if you ever get sick and you start spiking a fever, or you start having a fever, it's your body temperature is increasing because most infections don't survive above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Our bodies are typically at like 97.5 to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's usually where we operate, when we're normal and like we're all good. But infections don't really survive above 100 degrees. So, typically, so your body is actually trying to kill off the virus by raising your temperature. Now, a low fever actually stimulates white blood cells to mature. So usually they're kind of immature, like they're floating around your body, they're not doing anything. And then like a fever sort of kicks it into high gear and says, okay, it's time to go to work. It's that cue for your white blood cells. The problem is that if you get a really high fever, it can cause a seizure, a brain damage, even death. So if the virus is a really tough virus to fight, like the coronavirus or Ebola or some of those other really tough viruses, your body temperature will spike and it'll keep going higher because the virus isn't going away and your body's trying to kill it and it just keeps going higher. But your body doesn't have enough sense to realize that it's also killing you at the same time. Like your body cells can't survive over like 106, 107 degrees. Like at basically past 104, you're cooking at that point, and you're gonna cause seizures and brain damage, and like you could like seriously get sick or die. So yeah, fevers are like great at low grade, but once they start getting really high, it's not good. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video right here because we're about running out of time, and then I will start another video for part